Thank you for joining for our first video class for Sabbats for the semester. And hopefully this goes really smoothly. I haven't done this before, the video PowerPoint slide combination thing on YouTube. We'll see how this goes. If you all don't like this, please let me know ultimately, because we can always come up with something better. My idea was this might be easiest since it might be difficult to record voice chats or voice classes if we did them in the academy. But this way you can also see some of the things that I'm saying as I'm saying them. I figured this might be just a little bit easier to keep up with. So let's just go ahead and get started. First of all, I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction about myself and what this class will be. I know I've already released the syllabus, of course, and there was a reading assignment already this week, so I'm sure you all have looked at those things, but I thought it might be a little bit different if you just heard it from me as well. So first of all, my name is Carla. You can call me Carla, Professor, that's either way is totally fine. And I have been practicing for now a little over a year, and my craft is very important to me. It's very unique to me. Some people might say that I'm eclectic. However, I consider myself more of a kitchen witch, green witch, hedge witch, that type of pathway. That's pretty much where I fit in. While there are other aspects of the craft that I pull from different pathways, I pretty much stick to those three. I do have ancestors who were witches as well. They probably would not have called themselves that, but looking back, that's what they were. I had my great aunt was actually a hedge witch, although she lived in the mountains in Kentucky. I'm getting distracted. Anyway, so I have her who is a witch, and then my great grandmother was a green witch, and she was just, magical to me. I thought she was amazing. But anyways, so if you ever need to contact me, you can do that through the academy. I am always happy to get messages from you. If for some reason you don't want to message me that route, I've put my email address on here. I made an email account just for the academy, so no other emails will be in there. And anything that you say to me, if you want me to keep things private or, whatever you'd like, I will definitely respect that. Or if you have a question that you want to ask me that you don't want to ask publicly, anything that you want. If you need to talk to me, if you just need someone to talk to, my door is always open. So you can contact me on the academy, or you can email me. It's tmaprof.carla@gmail.com. And like I said, anything that you want to send me. If you do message me on the academy, just know that I am a mother. I do have a toddler, and I also run my own business. So there are a lot of days where I may just not be available. So I don't always know those ahead of time. I wish that I did. But if you do send me a message, I promise you, as soon as I'm available, I will definitely get back to you. Most of the time during the day, especially through the week, I am pretty much available. If not completely available, I'll have my phone close by and I'll hear it if I get a message. So usually during the week is better for me. Weekends, I tend to be a lot busier. That's family time, that's business time. But just reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns, anything you'd like to tell me, anything you want to talk about, and I will definitely get back to you. So I want to talk about what you can expect out of this class. We are going to be going over the 8 Sabbats on the Wheel of the Year. If you did your reading assignment that I just put out, then you'll know a little bit about the Wheel of the Year already. If you don't, make sure you do that reading assignment. Whenever I do these video classes, I will not be rehashing what is in the reading. Now, that being said, when it comes to Saturday and we do our check-in, recap, Q&A day, I will do that then. But these video classes will be separate from the reading, although they may intertwine a little bit. I will not go over the reading in these video classes. But Saturdays, yes, I will. So each week will be designated to one of the Sabbats. There are 8, and typically what we're going to do is you'll have a reading assignment over the history, whether it's something that I've written out myself, or if I'm able to find an article that you could read, or if I find something else that I might kind of just link for you. And then the second part of the week when we do our video class will typically be when I talk about the modern interpretations and ways that you can incorporate that into your practice. I don't want to say that's how it's always going to go, but typically that is how these video classes and assignments will work. Now, every week you will have an assignment, and your assignment that will be due for homework relates to the week prior to that. So, for example, this coming Monday, your assignment will be to turn in homework over Imbolc, which is what we'll be discussing this week. So what the assignments are, they're very, very simple, and it will be the same assignment every week. I might assign you some reading questions just to kind of guide you through reading assignments, but one homework assignment that you will have every single week is to put together a collage, make some artwork. You could put together an altar for yourself, whatever you want to do. I would like to see your interpretation of the holiday, or the Sabbath. Personally, I always refer to them as holidays just because I celebrate everything I possibly can. But they're Sabbats. So for every Sabbath, you'll put together what your altar might look like, or how you might decorate to celebrate that Sabbath. So this Monday coming up, you're going to submit your homework assignment for Imbolc. So like I said, make a collage. You can draw it yourself. You can actually use the physical items that you have and take a photo. Whatever you'd like to do. Be creative. This is totally optional, of course. You do not have to do this by any means, as with anything else in this class. But this is a chance for you to get creative and have a visual representation for you to see later on when you want to celebrate these on your own. And I know for a lot of people, especially those of you that are in the broom closet, this would be a great way for you to feel like you can celebrate the Sabbats without having to be very public about it, especially those who still live at home with parents who might have different belief systems and things like that. This is a good way for you to be able to celebrate without having to do it so openly, but also good for reference. Okay, so I'm droning on. Let's move on. Okay, so today we are talking about Imbolc. And there's a lot of different words for this holiday, this Sabbath, and a lot of different ways to pronounce it. For the purposes of our class, we're going to be referring to it as Imbolc. And it's celebrated on February 1st. And one thing I want to address is that some people tend to refer to Imbolc as Candlemas. And I just want to make sure that everyone knows those two are not the same thing. Imbolc and Candlemas are not the same. Imbolc is based on growth and warmth. They are very, very different holidays. Imbolc is a time when, we are leaving the darker part of the year and we're starting to prepare for the warmer, longer days. Candlemas is actually a Christian holiday. That's where it originated, at least. And it celebrates something completely different. We'll touch on that just a little tiny bit in this video class. But I really want to focus on Imbolc. So just know that they are two different things, and the terms should not be used interchangeably, although a lot of people do discuss it that way. So as I said before, we're going to be referring to it as Imbolc. So as I was saying about it, this is a time of growth and warmth. And what happens is, the reason it began to be celebrated was because it was a turning point in the season. It was a time when our ancestors were realizing that spring was starting to begin under the snow. They might have had little blooms poking through. Just to be clear, it is not the beginning of spring, but it was just the start of spring. It was that spring was trying to start. And this was very big for them. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But Imbolc is a time for new plans, new ideas, And it's also a time of evaluation. You want to look at your life, things that aren't serving you, relationships that aren't serving you. And this is a time to let those go or transform them. This is also a time of transformation. So you should be looking within yourself, within your own life, and making plans, seeing what you want to do differently this year, this season, whatever is important to you at the time, and letting go of things that are not. The best way to think about Imbolc is like a cocoon. So you think of a caterpillar, it goes into its cocoon, and it's transforming, it's becoming something beautiful, it's going to be something new as it emerges. So this is your time to be inside of your cocoon. You want to be transforming into whatever you want your life to be, whatever kind of person you want to be. And this is just a time to celebrate that. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Imbolc. And before I go on, I'm hearing my child start to rustle. I just want to let you know I am doing this voice recording as my child is napping in the next room. If you're a mom, you know how it is. So if you hear some little peeps or whispers or anything like that, it's my child and I apologize. Okay, so let's get into the history. So our ancestors, and when I say ancestors, I don't necessarily mean your direct line of ancestors. I mean the human that came before us. So our ancestors had to live a very different way than we did. You have to think back, 5,000 years ago, even 500 years ago, what was their life like? And now we have all of these things that we take for granted. For example, if you want to keep meat frozen and you want to keep it for a couple of months, it's no problem. You just pop it in the freezer. Or if you have milk that you need to keep cold, no big deal. You pop it in the fridge. We have things that we don't realize are so necessary that our ancestors did not have. So they had serious limitations on food supplies and how they could store that. They came out of their Samhain season, their Samhain Sabbat, where they were collecting all of their harvest. They were slaughtering their last animals for the year. And that had to last them through this winter season where food was going to be scarce. Crops were not available. Any animals that they had that were going to be slaughtered had already been done so. So any meats they had to be stored. And they don't have the necessities that we have. They don't have the storage capabilities that we have. So they had a lot of limitations on what food they had, what storage they had. Not only that, but on the warmth that they could possibly have in their home, because the types of dwellings that they had, their shelters probably had thatched roofs, grass roofs, a lot of hay, and having a fire in that environment wasn't always safe. So they did have to limit their warmth, their fires, things like that, so that their dwelling would remain safe. Also, if they had clothing and maybe they had to walk through the snow and the clothing was wet, they didn't have dryers. They could just throw that clothing in. So this was really an unsafe time for them, this winter time, because it was cold, food was scarce, and there wasn't a lot of warmth. And some people, unfortunately, didn't make it through this season. They knew that they had to make sacrifices and they had to ration out their food to make sure it was going to get through. And this is something that we just don't know about in our present day. So this is one reason why they started celebrating Imbolc, because this was a time when things were starting to change. So another thing they had to do was maintain their livestock. Although some livestock was slaughtered for the winter season for meats, they still kept some because, of course, they had to keep their food supply chain going. So there had to be livestock that remained so that there could be new babies born in the spring and new livestock for meats in the fall. So any livestock that they had also had to be kept fed, had to be kept warm. That's something else they had to deal with. And we just don't comprehend that or how difficult it really, really was. So all of these Sabbats that we're going to talk about will, in one way or another, come back around to celebrating what was happening in nature at that time and the importance of the change that was occurring. And our ancestors had a very deep understanding and reliance on that. They were extremely aware of the power of nature and the fact that they needed to work with nature. It's something that we've really gotten away from as a modern society and all of our technological advances. But for them, Imbolc was the start of spring. They knew that these brighter seasons are coming. They are just around the corner. So at this point, they knew where their foods need to be rationed to, how much longer they have before they're going to have fresh crops and be able to plant things. It was a turning point for them. It was a time to celebrate. We've made it this far. We're going to make it the rest of the way. We've got this. And this is also a time where new little calves are being born. They're starting to clean out their homes and get in prepared for the next season. This was definitely a time to celebrate for them, but it wasn't for, just for the sake of having a celebration. They didn't just create something out of thin air. This was a celebration of life, of, rebirth, changing, transformation, and just celebrating what nature was going to provide for them. So, one thing that really needs to be discussed, because you just can't talk about Imbolc without talking about Bridget. And Bridget has a lot of different names, and depending on what pathway you're in, she might be named something completely different and stand for different things. But basically, Bridget, who is sometimes referred to as a saint or a goddess, she is a shapeshifter. She's a protector. And she is very well loved and liked among the communities where she is known. And there's a lot of things that she is known for. And I'm actually going to read a passage out of a text that I have. Bridget is a goddess of fire and flame, change, poetry and inspiration, transformation, wisdom, metalworking in the fire and the forge, healing, creativity, water, prophecy, education, and learning. She is credited with giving the written word to humanity. Bridget is also a goddess of childbirth, and she can be called upon for help during delivery to keep mother and child safe. And so Bridget is very, very well known, and there are so many shrines and monuments to her. There have been over many, many, many generations where she was worshipped, and it was a safe place for her. There was a sacred well in Ireland. There's also she's also the goddess of the eternal flame, and there's a shrine for her in Ireland as well. And she was thought to be a protector and defender of all, but especially of women. She and as I'm trying to tiptoe around this because I don't want to offend anyone, but just to be historically accurate, to go back in time, in ancient times, anyone that guarded any temple or any sacred place that was dedicated to her would have been female, just because of what they believed then. And just so that there have been transformations in that line of belief, so more genders are being included in that. But I didn't want to offend anybody by saying that. But so anyway, so mostly it was women who protected the shrines and everything that were dedicated to her. And that was mainly because she was believed to be, the goddess of life and birth and things that pertain particularly to women. But that does not mean that she was only a goddess or saint for women. I hope that makes sense. And again, I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just trying to be historically accurate. But there are, this time of year, in the season of Imbolc, a lot of people that practice now still do give prayers to her and really believe that she is a wonderful, wonderful goddess and saint. So, and we'll touch on a little bit more that you can do in just a little bit. If you do want to give praise to her and worship her, that is absolutely okay. But again, that is not for everyone. This is just some things that you can do. But one thing I wanted to talk about was the, and you'll see this with every Sabbath. Let me just say that. As these Sabbats were being recognized by the Christian community that was emerging into the pagan communities at the time that our ancestors were living, back when they would have celebrated these holidays and Sabbats for their natural purposes and not their, what's the word that I'm looking for? Not for their sentimental purposes, I should say. Back then, as Christianity was emerging, like most religions that have emerged, I'm not saying anything negative about it. The Christians took things from other religions to create their own. Not to say that they didn't have some of their own beliefs; they absolutely did. But in reference to the Sabbats, a lot of the times Christian holidays that were being created were not. I guess the best way to say it, were not well accepted by other religious communities, mainly because they felt as though the Christian community was trying to convert them, and sadly, a lot of times they were. And throughout history, it becomes a larger issue. But we're not going to get into that. Just know that as Christianity was emerging, they were pulling things from other religious communities to create their own beliefs and their own celebrations. So Bridget was no exception to this. As Christianity was trying to emerge in the Celtic areas, they were receiving a lot of pushback. A lot of the pagans and other religions in the area really did not want to join the Christian pathway. So one thing that the Christians did was they started incorporating pagan beliefs into their own system, but tweaking them just a little bit to make them fit their storyline a little better. And again, I am not saying anything in any way to be offensive, only to be historically accurate. So it doesn't really matter where I fall in these beliefs. It's just this is what happened. So when it came to Bridget, the Christians created their own holiday of Candlemas. And most Christians actually don't even know about this. And I can tell you that as someone that was brought up in a Christian church, not to say that I fully follow that pathway now, but as someone that was brought up in the Christian church, I actually did not even hear of this until I've learned more about the Sabbats. But traditionally, Candlemas is a Christian holiday, and it is celebrated on February 2nd. Imbolc, as we've said, is celebrated on the 1st. So when Christians wanted to create their holiday on the 2nd, they decided to incorporate Saint Bridget as a way to try to show pagans that they were, in fact, going to incorporate some of their own beliefs into their Christian beliefs and hopefully try to get them to convert over. And in some cases it worked, and in some cases it didn't. But Saint Bridget was believed to be in the Christian belief, anyway, I should say, they believe that she is the healer. She was a healer in the time of the godson, and she was a midwife to the Virgin Mother Mary. And Candlemas Eve is considered Saint Bridget's birthday. So that's a good example of how you can see crossover between not only the pagans and Christians, but there's also a lot of crossover in many other religions and pathways. So just know that she was pulled from somewhere else. If you practice, Christianity, she did come from somewhere else as well. Not to say that any one pathway is right or wrong. It's just there are other places where she originates from. And like I said, she is very well known in many, 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 many practices, but doesn't always go by the same name. I think that some call her, in the Caribbean, I think she's called Madame Brigitte. You get the idea. So across many, many different pathways and practices. She is very well known. And a lot of people use this time as a way to recognize Bridget. And especially those of us who follow a pagan pathway and believe very heavily in the connection with nature, Bridget is a very good way to get in tune with that, in my opinion. Okay, so let's talk about how Imbolc has kind of transformed over the centuries. So right now, Imbolc is called what you refer to as a sleepy Sabbat. And basically that means that it's kind of an in-between Sabbat where not a lot of people recognize it. It's a very quiet, and to kind of semi-connect it back to our ancestors, it would have been a quiet time for them as well, because this time of year for our ancestors was not a time of getting out and visiting your friends and having parties and things like that. It was definitely a time that would have been celebrated within your own home. So even in our modern practices, Imbolc tends to be a very personal and intimate time for us. It's more family focused. So it's much more of a better time to focus on yourself, on transforming you and working on ideas for yourself, things that you want to change and do better, or even within your family, the same types of things. What can you improve in your family life? But it wasn't typically something, and is not typically something that is widely celebrated. You probably won't have a large feast where you invite your whole family. It's not as large as, say, Yule or Samhain, things like that. This is a much smaller, lesser discussed Sabbath. And one reason it's like that is because over the centuries, we have sort of lost that connection with the ancient practices. And the reason is because we no longer have to worry so much about, when are we nearing the time where we can plant our crops? When are we nearing the time where we're not going to have to figure out how to, quote unquote, refrigerate our food in snow and ice? We don't have to worry about those things so much. And that's why it's so important to realize how much we don't quite understand what our ancestors went through and why this time was so important for them. Because we don't quite understand that ourselves and our society, but we can honor our ancestors and what they went through and why this time was so important to them, and also honor what it represents and let us transform ourselves in this time of Imbolc. And one way you can do that is you can get outside, go out, go for a walk, try to connect with nature, look around you, see if you see anything peeking through the snow or things changing that you didn't notice before. Are you seeing any signs of spring? Are you seeing that warmer weather is on its way? And just try to connect with what Mother Earth is trying to tell you. You could also use this time to start planning your spring garden. And, I'm looking at you, green witches, hedge witches. Yeah, I'm seeing you. This is a time where maybe you're going to start planning your gardens. Maybe you're going to start thinking about what kind of herbs you want to grow. Or maybe you're going to start some seedlings inside. If you're in my herbology class, we'll talk about how to do that this semester as well. But this is a time to celebrate Goddess Bridget, if you're into that. But you can also clean and declutter your space, work on organization, making yourself have a brighter start to this year. Spring is coming and you want a very good energetic atmosphere. So let's declutter. Let's get those things out that you don't need, figuratively and metaphorically. Get those things out. And also, Imbolc was not a time to light a huge fire like we might do for our summer Sabbats or our fall Sabbats. This was a time for a simple, very calm candle. Just something small to symbolize the fire spirit of Bridget. So you can always just light a candle to honor the Sabbat, maybe meditate on that. And of course, one thing I want to talk about is the magical associations, different things that you can incorporate into your life during this time of Imbolc, things you can use to celebrate. And of course, our altars are one of those things, especially for those of us that really use our altar as a place to celebrate the Sabbats. This is a really good thing to have. So I'm gonna leave this slide up that you're looking at. I'm gonna read through it, but I'll leave it up for just a little bit so you can read through it as well. But the focus of Imbolc is cleansing, protection, divination, birth and rebirth, transformation, youth, health, emergence, and awakenings. And just know that Bridget encompasses all of those things, and she is such a wonderful power in this Sabbat. And let's look at the colors, things that you could incorporate in your altar space, or even if you want to decorate your room or your home. Light green, pink, white, yellow, which reminds me very much of spring and just makes me feel those colors just bring such positive energy to me, especially coming out of this Yule season, which I love Yule, don't get me wrong, but it's just so much brighter and it's just a whole different energy. And, if you're cooking, maybe you're a kitchen witch or just anyone else, if you want to incorporate your magic into your cooking, these are some herbs you can incorporate. Angelica, basil, blackberry, cinnamon, grain, reed, and wormwood. If you like to burn incense, I know I personally do. I love incense. It's one of my favorite things to incorporate. Try using some of these scents, cedar, peppermint, styrax, basil, and cinnamon. If you want to put flowers on your altar or around your home in honor of Imbolc, try crocus and daffodil. I know some people like to use little statues in their altar setups. So knowing the animals that are associated with the Sabbat are actually really beneficial for that. The animals for the Imbolc are cow, dragon, groundhog, lark, robin, sheep, snake, and swan. And there are the symbols and tools. And a lot of people incorporate some of these into their interior home decorations as well. I know that we have a Bridget's cross that we hang. You can make corn dollies, and corn dollies are really popular during Mabon and Samhain, but you can also use them as a Bridget dolly, candles, statues of St. Bridget, St. Mary, the cauldron, a broom, a whistle. And the whistle is actually, this is a good one. I forgot about this. So the symbolism of the whistle goes back to Bridget, and it was believed that Bridget was the creator of the whistle, and it was meant to alert people when women were attacked. So it was like a defensive weapon. So of course it could be used for anyone, not just women, but the original interpretation of it was for women. And if you want to incorporate some different foods or drinks into your diet, maybe just on this special day, if you want to make a meal just for yourself or just for your family to celebrate Imbolc, try incorporating these dried fruits, grains, potatoes, cornmeal, dried salts and meat, dries or salted meat, cheese, pickled canned foods, nuts, eggs, anything dairy really, ale, mead, and cider. The dairy was important because as the livestock that they've kept are coming into giving birth to their new young, they were able to produce milk. So around Imbolc, our ancestors were able to have their first taste of fresh milk for the season. So it was really important to them. Okay, so if you would like to create some crafts that could be kept in your altar, or if you wanted to use them to decorate your home, these are two of my favorites, the Bridget's Cross and the Bridget's Dolly, and I'm going to link them in the description box below if you would like to just follow those links, and they can show you how to create those. The tutorials that I've linked are actually really, really good. So that pretty much wraps up what we're going to discuss about Imbolc. And in the future weeks, we will probably cover a little bit more detail about each Sabbat. But since we divided this week into the Wheel of the Year and Imbolc, I had to kind of condense a little bit. So just to give you an idea of what to expect for next week, on Monday, I will release our assignments for the week as I did this week. And you can expect to have a few questions over next week's reading assignment. And those questions, the responses to those questions, you can just submit in the homework channel. Like I said, those will be assigned on Monday. I will put those out on Monday. I'll also release a link to a quiz that's going to be over Imbolc for this week, but you'll see that on Monday. And then on Tuesday, at I think our time is 2 p.m. I'm not sure. Just keep up with me on that. I can't remember the time quite off the top of my head. On Tuesday, I'll release our video class on Ostara. I'm sorry. And then on Saturday, we will have our check-in, recap, and Q&A. And as I was saying at the beginning of this, Saturdays will always be the day that we just kind of get together. I'm debating on doing a voice chat with that, or like a voice meet with that. I haven't quite decided. I'll let you know for sure this coming Saturday whether or not I'll be in the voice room or not. I'm thinking it might be faster if I verbally answer those questions for you than it would be if I were to just type everything out. But we'll try it this week and see how it goes. I'm not sure how I'm going to do that for sure, but I'll definitely let you know. So yeah, every Saturday we'll do a check-in, a recap of what we've talked about that week. And really it's so that when it comes time for the quiz on Monday, you'll be prepared with everything we talked about for the week. I'll recap everything we've discussed. So I won't go over everything in huge detail, but we will do a brief recap. And like I said, I'll answer any questions that you all may have. And I'll just check in, see how you guys are doing, see if you have any concerns with how the class is going or any suggestions on how to make it better. All right, guys. Well, that's all that I have for you for this video class. And we did pretty well. This one wasn't too long, so we're coming up on about 40 minutes. I hope you hung with me for this long. Next week, it will probably be about the same time, lengthwise, for these video chats or video classes. I apologize. So I will talk to you all soon. We'll do our recap this coming Saturday over this week. And I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful week and weekend. Thanks, guys. Bye.